My daughter said, "Mom, I need your money. It's for an emergency with the kids." Then, 2 days later, she posted a picture smiling in the Maldives with her husband. I stared at the screen for a long time. At first, I thought maybe I misunderstood. Maybe it was an old picture. Maybe it was photoshopped. I kept looking for something that would explain away the confusion in my chest. But the caption was clear. "Finally, some peace. Maldives with my man. We deserve this." It wasn't old. It wasn't a memory. It was a celebration. Hold on a moment before we move forward. Let us know where in the world you're watching from. And if you're loving these stories, don't forget to hit subscribe. Tomorrow's episode is going to be absolutely mind-blowing. 2 days earlier, she had called me around 11 at night. I was already in bed, my knees aching from standing too long in the kitchen. She said her voice was shaking, like she had been crying. She told me the boys were sick, that both of them had high fevers, that they needed medicine, and she was short on rent because of unexpected expenses. I didn't ask for proof. I didn't even hesitate. I transferred $5,000 that same night. I took it from my savings account. I told her not to worry. I said, "Just take care of those babies." She didn't even say thank you, just ended the call with, "You're a lifesaver, Mom," and hung up. Now I was looking at her with a cocktail in hand, laughing like life had never been hard. I didn't know how long I sat there with the photo open. My tea had gone cold beside me. The TV was still playing, but I wasn't watching. I was just there, still, numb. I clicked on her profile. She had posted 4 more pictures, one in a pool with a straw hat, one of her and her husband holding hands at dinner, one of her on a boat. One caption said, "Sometimes you have to treat yourself. No guilt, just love." No guilt. She had no guilt. I felt a tightness in my chest, not like a panic attack, but more like a slow, heavy press, like the weight of realization settling in. The phone rang, and I jumped. It was my sister, Bernice. She asked how I was doing. I told her I wasn't feeling great. She said she had seen the pictures too, that her friend sent them to her and asked, "Isn't that your niece? She's living it up." Bernice didn't mean harm, but the way she said it made my throat close, up. I got off the call as fast as I could. That night I didn't sleep. I kept thinking of all the times she told me she was struggling. I remembered wiring her money when her car broke down. I remembered helping with her rent when she said her husband got laid off. I remembered buying her groceries when she said she had nothing in the fridge. And now I wondered how many of those were lies. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was just embarrassed. I felt stupid, like a fool, like an old woman who had been played. The next day I called her. It rang once, then straight to voicemail. I waited an hour. Called again. Same thing. I sent her a text. "Are you okay? I saw your post. Can we talk?" No reply. A few hours later, I tried to call again. This time, the call didn't even ring. It said, "Message not delivered." When I tried texting, I had been blocked. That was when it shifted. Before that, I was confused, hurt. But now, blocked. That was intentional. That was personal. That meant she wasn't even trying to pretend anymore. She didn't want to explain. She didn't want to apologize. She just wanted me gone. My hand shook as I set the phone down. I sat in my living room for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I just sat there, looking at the pictures on my wall. One of them was of her high school graduation, another of her wedding day. I had helped pay for that wedding. I remember giving her the deposit for the photographer. I got up and walked to the kitchen. I opened the drawer where I kept the envelopes. The ones with my will, the insurance paperwork, the deed to this house. Everything was there, neat and labeled. One envelope had her name on it. It was sealed. I had written it 2 years ago. Right after I turned 65. It was supposed to be my final letter to her. It had a copy of the will, instructions, a note telling her how much I loved her, and how everything I had was meant for her and her kids. I opened it, took the letter out, and started reading. Halfway through, my hands stopped shaking. The first was assuming I'd stay quiet. You grew up in this house, Vanessa. You slept in the room I painted myself. You wore the clothes I sewed when we couldn't afford new ones. I worked overtime so you could have dance lessons, birthday parties, a new backpack every school year. I went without so you could have. But you threw all that away for a vacation and some peace of mind that cost me my dignity. I've changed my will. Completely. You are no longer a beneficiary of anything tied to my name. Not the house, not the money, not the land in Louisiana your grandmother left behind. You took more than money from me. You took trust, and I don't rebuild bridges that were burned on purpose. But Maya is different. She still calls me. She still shows up. She still knows how to say thank you. That girl may carry your name, but she carries none of your entitlement. She will be taken care of. Not by you. By me. For the record, I never wanted revenge. I wanted peace. And I found it the moment I realized I didn't owe you my silence anymore. Wish you the life you chose. I won't be part of it. Mom, I folded the letter and placed it inside a fireproof envelope in the filing cabinet. I left instructions with Monica to deliver it after my passing, along with the estate denial statement. Later that week, I had Maya over again. She didn't talk much that day, just followed me around while I checked on the herbs and changed the batteries in the smoke detectors. Eventually, she asked, "Do you think Mom will ever stop being mad?" I looked at her carefully and said, "Your mother's not mad. She's embarrassed. People like her don't like to be reminded that they can't manipulate everybody." She nodded. "I don't think she's going to change," I said. "That's why I made sure you have something that she can't touch." Then I gave her a key. Not the spare one this time. A new one. "What's this?" she asked. "That's the key to this house. The real one. For when it becomes yours. I already spoke to Monica about it." Maya looked at me with wide eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Just keep watering your rosemary and keep your grades up." That night, we had dinner together and watched a movie. Maya fell asleep on the couch, and I covered her with a blanket like I used to do when she was little. When she finally went home, I stood at the door and watched her walk down the street. She turned around and waved. I waved back. I didn't think about Vanessa. I didn't think about the money. I didn't think about the betrayal. I thought about Maya. About her future. About the kind of woman she might become because someone stepped in when her mother failed. A few days later, I received another letter from Vanessa's lawyer, a polite attempt to reopen discussion. I forwarded it to Monica without opening it. She replied 2 hours later. "Taken care of. They won't be bothering you again." I made some tea and sat out on the porch. The rosemary was growing, the thyme too. Even the small corner I'd given Maya was blooming. It had been almost 2 months since the Maldives incident. Vanessa hadn't shown up again. I heard from a neighbor that she and Marcus were fighting, that the house had a foreclosure notice taped to the front window. But that wasn't my business. I had my porch, my home, my granddaughter. And the silence felt earned. She didn't move at first, but eventually she got the message. When she stepped outside, I said one last thing. You can't guilt someone who gave until there was nothing left. She paused on the steps. You'll regret this, she said. No, I replied. I regret not doing it sooner. I closed the door behind her. That evening, I called Monica and told her to move forward with the full trust transfer. I wasn't leaving any gaps. 2 days later, I got confirmation from Carolyn at the community center. The Mayfield grant was now officially funded and listed as an independent community assistance program. They had added a tab to the center's website with a small photo of me. Not a headshot, just a picture someone took during a food drive, holding a box of canned goods and laughing. It wasn't about making myself a hero. It was about redirecting what mattered. The next week, Vanessa didn't come by. She didn't call, but Maya did. After school on Friday, she texted, "Can I come over? Mom's not talking to me much. It's weird at home." I replied, "Yes, I'll have dinner ready by 6. When she showed up, her backpack looked heavier than usual. She gave me a half smile. "I brought extra clothes, in case I stay the weekend." I didn't question it. Over dinner, she asked, "Did you and Mom have a fight?" I thought for a moment. "No," I said. "We had a reckoning." She blinked. "What does that mean?" It means I told her the truth and she didn't like hearing it. Maya nodded slowly. "She's mad all the time now," she said. "She said something about you ruining everything." I didn't respond. Maya looked down at her plate. "She always tells me to respect people who help you, but she doesn't do that with you." "She's still figuring things out," I said. "But that's not your job to fix." She looked at me again. "I want to live here one day." I smiled. "You already do." We spent the weekend watching old movies, folding laundry, and planting new herbs in the backyard. I gave her her own pot to tend to, a rosemary bush. "You take care of this, and I'll know you're ready for anything," I told her. She grinned. "Even high school?" I laughed. "Especially high school." That Sunday night, I packed her a lunch for Monday. She hugged me tightly before she left, then turned back at the gate. "She's gonna be mad I came here." "You didn't come here," I said. "You returned." She nodded. When she walked away, I stood by the window, watching her disappear down the sidewalk. It didn't matter what Vanessa said or did after this. The shift had already happened. She thought money was the inheritance, but I knew better. 3 weeks after Vanessa stormed out of my house, I got a call from Monica. She had just finished filing the final trust paperwork and sent me a certified copy of the entire estate plan. Everything was in place. The house was now under conditional trust. Upon my passing, it would transfer to Maya when she turned 21. The life insurance, the savings account, the property deed, even the emergency fund I kept in my bedroom safe, all of it had been reassigned. Vanessa was legally and completely removed from every document. "I've included a clause," Monica said on the phone, "stating that if Maya's mother attempts to access any part of the estate, she'll be reported to the state attorney's office for breach of legal protections." I said, "Good." That afternoon, I sat down, at the same dining table where I used to help Vanessa with her spelling words, and opened my old notebook, the one where I used to track expenses, birthdays, doctor appointments. On the first empty page, I wrote a letter. Not to Monica, not to Maya, to Vanessa. I didn't do it to give her closure. I didn't do it for forgiveness. I did it to finish Vanessa. When you called me crying about an emergency with the kids, I believed you. Without hesitation, I drained my savings and gave you money I had set aside to cover the next 5 years of my retirement. I didn't ask for proof. I didn't demand receipts. I acted like a mother. Because that's what I am. What I was. But when I saw those photos of you in the Maldives with your husband, smiling, drinking, lounging, while I was at home eating leftovers and rationing my medication, you didn't just break my heart. You disrespected it. I would have forgiven the lie. But then you blocked me. You cut me off like I was an inconvenience. That was your second mistake. She looked me in the eyes. No, she said. I think she's mad because she knows she messed up. That was the first time I cried in front of her. Not hard. Just a few tears. Maya reached out and held my hand. I told her I was proud of her. That no matter what happened between me and her mother, she would always have a place with me. Before she went to bed that night, I gave her the spare key again, just in case she hadn't brought it. She showed it to me. I keep it in my pencil case, I smiled. Smart girl. Sunday night, when it was time for her to go home, I walked her to the door and hugged her for a long time. She whispered, I wish I could stay longer. I whispered back, one day you'll be able to. I watched her walk down the path to her father's car. Vanessa didn't get out. She stayed in the passenger seat, sunglasses on, head turned. I didn't wave, and she didn't look up. Inside the house, I closed the door and locked it behind me. I stood there for a long time. I knew something else was coming. Vanessa wasn't the kind to go away quietly, but I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. The next time I heard from Vanessa, it wasn't a call. It was a knock, a sharp, impatient knock. 2 short bangs followed by 1 long one. I knew that rhythm. She always knocked like she was trying to rush the door open with her will alone. I didn't open it right away. I stood in the hallway, watched her through the peephole. She was wearing sunglasses again, even though it was cloudy outside, and her mouth was tight like she'd been biting the inside of her cheek. Marcus wasn't with her. She knocked again. I still didn't move. Finally, I cracked the door but didn't open it all the way. You here to apologize? I asked. She shifted her weight. Can I come in? I hesitated, then opened the door just wide enough for her to walk through. I didn't offer her a seat. I didn't offer her tea. She stood in the middle of the living room like she'd never been there before, even though she'd grown up on that same couch and played under that same coffee table. She looked around, then turned back to me. I need your help. I crossed my arms. Again? She flinched just slightly. My accounts are frozen, she said. The one with the backup credit line. The one I used for the mortgage. That account was in my name, I said calmly. I removed you last month. You didn't tell me. I wasn't obligated to. She started pacing. Now the mortgage company is saying we're late. They're adding penalties. Marcus is blaming me. Maya's noticing things. She should, I said. She's old enough to recognize a lie. Vanessa stopped pacing and looked at me. I messed up. I didn't respond. I know I shouldn't have used the money like that. She continued. The vacation. It wasn't supposed to be a vacation. We were. I don't know. Trying to reset. That's not what you told me when you needed the money, I said. You said it was for the kids. Her eyes shifted to the side. I panicked. You lied, I corrected. I was going to pay you back. I raised my eyebrows. With what? She didn't answer. I walked past her and sat down in my chair by the window. I'd had enough of standing. She stayed where she was, near the middle of the rug, arms crossed now, like she was cold but too proud to say so. Mom, she said, I know I messed up. but I'm your daughter. You used to be, I said quietly. That hit her. I saw it in her face. You can't just erase me. I didn't erase you, I said. You erased yourself when you decided I was just a wallet, when you lied about your kids being sick, when you blocked me like I was some problem to avoid. She tried again, softer this time. I thought we could fix this. I looked at her. You froze me out when I gave you everything. Now I've frozen you out, after you stole. Sounds fair to me. That was when she dropped the polite act. She raised her voice. You've always held money over me, even when I was little. You think just because you helped me doesn't mean I get to make mistakes. I stayed quiet. You think you're better than me because you struggled more. I leaned forward. No, Vanessa. I think I'm better than who you turned into. She blinked fast like she wanted to cry, but wasn't sure how. I'm still your daughter, she whispered. I stood up again. Then, act like it. She didn't say anything after that. I walked to the door and held it open. Wishes to confirm that her previously assigned beneficiary status remains unchanged in the current estate plan. She hadn't called me again. She hadn't shown up. But she'd gone out and hired someone to pressure me, thinking I'd fold like I always did. I didn't fold. I made a copy of the letter, put it in a plastic sleeve, and drove it straight to Monica's office the next morning. She read it carefully, flipping through the pages with her glasses perched low on her nose. She's fishing, Monica said. This is a scare tactic. She picked the wrong person this time, I said. Monica slid the letter back across the desk. You want me to respond? Yes, I said. In writing. I want it to be official. That afternoon, Monica drafted the reply. Ms. Mayfield confirms that her current estate documentation has been updated as of last month. Ms. Holloway is not a named beneficiary under the new plan. All prior designations involving Ms. Holloway have been revoked in accordance with legal procedures. I reviewed it, approved it, and signed where needed. By the time I left the office, Vanessa's attempt to manipulate me through legal pressure was dead on arrival. She wasn't going to get another $1, not from me. 2 days later, my phone rang again. It was a number I didn't recognize. Again. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. It was her husband, Marcus. Mrs. Mayfield? He said too casually. What do you want? He chuckled like we were old friends. Look, I just wanted to clear the air. Things have gotten out of hand. I didn't reply. He kept going. Vanessa's been under a lot of stress. You know, how emotional she can get. Don't call this emotional, I said. Call it dishonest. There was a pause. Then he shifted tone. We just want to make sure Maya is taken care of. That's all. I felt my jaw clench. Maya has never gone without. But you and Vanessa already took what wasn't yours. He sighed. Vanessa's talking about taking legal action. Then she better be ready to lose, I said. And I hung up. That was the last call I picked up from either of them. I didn't waste energy after that. I focused on what mattered. I cleaned out the garage, donated 2 boxes of clothes I no longer wore, and brought a slow cooker of stew to the community center. I spoke again with Carolyn, the director. I told her I wanted to expand the fund we'd started. She raised her eyebrows. Are you sure? That's not a small amount. I'm sure, I said. I want this to help women like me. Women who gave too much to people who never gave back. We drafted a small contract. I would donate $40,000 over the next year in monthly installments. The money would be used for emergency rent, food stipends, and temporary housing for grandmothers who had been left behind. That evening, I slept well. The next few days were quiet again. Maya came over that Friday after school. She brought her backpack and asked if she could stay the weekend. I didn't ask questions. I told her yes before she even finished the sentence. She helped me cook dinner. We made smothered chicken and cornbread muffins. She told me about a boy at school who kept trying to copy her homework and how she got in trouble for calling him out in front of the class. I asked, "And what did your mom say?" She shrugged. "She's barely been around, always arguing with Marcus or on the phone with somebody." I didn't say anything. I just passed her a plate. Later that night, after she went to bed, I pulled out the folder with my final documents. I reviewed every line. Monica had prepared them exactly how I asked. The house goes to Maya, held in trust until she turns 21. A separate education fund was set aside in her name. Everything, life insurance, bonds, retirement, goes to the Mayfield grant. There was a clause stating explicitly that Vanessa Holloway was to receive no inheritance and was not to be notified of my death directly. Maya's guardian, until she was legally of age, would be a court-appointed trustee, unless another eligible relative stepped in with my approval. It was all airtight. The next morning, I sat Maya down on the porch. I gave her a glass of orange juice and asked her if she ever felt like her father tried to turn her against me. She blinked, then looked down. "Sometimes," she said. "She says you're bitter, that you don't like her husband, that you're punishing her." I nodded. "Do you believe that?" That same week, I scheduled a meeting. The director's name was Carolyn. She was maybe in her 40s, sharp and warm at the same time. I told her I wanted to set up a donation, not just a one-time thing, something lasting. She asked what I had in mind. I pulled out a piece of paper and slid it across her desk. The Mayfield Grant, Emergency Support for Elder Women in Crisis. She blinked, looked back at me. "That's your last name?" I nodded. I told her what happened, in plain language. "My daughter lied to me. She used me. She blocked me. And I've decided I'm not leaving her anything." Carolyn didn't look shocked, just disappointed, like it was a story she had heard before. "I don't want to make it public," I said, "but I want to know that my life helped someone else who's been through what I've been through." She nodded, then reached for her notepad. That was the beginning of it. I went back home and updated my personal documents again. The house would be sold upon my passing. Part of the proceeds would go to Maya, my granddaughter, but held in trust until she turned 21. The rest would go to the Mayfield grant. I didn't add Vanessa anywhere in the updated plan. Not a single line. She had already received more than most people get from their mothers. She got my time, my money, my name. She just never treated any of it with care. On Thursday, I got a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw a man in a tan uniform holding a clipboard. He worked for a delivery company. When I opened the door, he handed me a package and had me sign. I hadn't ordered anything. When I brought the box inside and opened it, I found a pair of earrings. Small diamond studs. No note, no receipt. Just a return address sticker with Vanessa's name. I stared at the earrings for a full minute before setting them down on the counter. It was her way of saying sorry. No words, just expensive things. But it didn't change anything. I didn't wear them. I didn't return them. I put them in the back of the drawer with the rest of the things that didn't mean anything anymore. 2 days later, I got a call from Maya. "Grandma, can I come by this weekend? I want to show you my science project." I smiled. "Of course, baby. I'll make cornbread." When she came over that Saturday, she carried a big poster board and a folder full of notes. She talked for nearly 30 minutes straight about volcanoes and baking soda and what she called gas reactions. I nodded through all of it, pretending to understand. Afterward, we sat on the porch and shared a slice of sweet potato pie. "Mom's been acting weird lately," she said suddenly. I didn't say anything. I just kept sipping my tea. "She keeps talking about the bank, and something about a lawyer. I think she's nervous." I looked at her carefully. "And how do you feel about that?" "I don't know. She says you're being unfair, but I remember when she asked you for money last year. You were real tired that day, but you still helped. I didn't push. Instead, I reached inside my sweater pocket and pulled out a key. I held it in my hand for a moment, then offered it to her. "Grandma, what's this?" "That's a spare key to this house, in case you ever need it, for anything." Her eyes widened. "Really?" "Yes, baby. This house might not mean much to your mother anymore, but it'll always mean something to you." She held the key like it was made of gold. Before she left that evening, I gave her a Tupperware full of leftovers and told her to be careful on the sidewalk. She hugged me tight, like she didn't want to let go. That night, I sat by the window and watched the quiet street. My porch light was on, even though no one else was coming. I knew things with Vanessa weren't done yet. She wasn't going to walk away easy. But I also knew that for the first time in years, I had the upper hand. She thought I was going to stay soft forever. But soft and blind are two different things. And she was about to learn that the hard way. It was the following week when I got the first formal letter from Vanessa's lawyer. A thin envelope with a business return address, stamped and sealed. When I saw her name in the subject line, Vanessa R. Holloway, I didn't feel fear. I felt irritated. Inside was a brief, polite letter requesting clarification on my estate status. The wording was light, but the message was clear. "Our client, Ms. Holloway." "You're all set," I nodded. "Thank you, Monica." She hesitated for a second, then asked, "Do you want to talk to someone about this? I know a counselor who works with women your age, especially those dealing with this kind of betrayal." I shook my head. "I'm not heartbroken. I'm done." She nodded slowly. "If you ever change your mind, I'll send her name." I left the office and went straight to the post office. I mailed Maya a small package. Inside was a letter, a book I used to read to her when she was a toddler, and a card that said, "Call me when you get this." I wasn't going to punish Maya for her mother's actions. That little girl didn't deserve to be erased. The rest of the week passed quietly. No calls, no drama. I kept myself busy in the garden, trimming my bushes, organizing the pantry, and updating my photo albums. Then on Sunday, something unexpected happened. A private number called my cell. I didn't recognize it, but I answered. It was Vanessa. Her voice was different. Lower, slower, like someone trying to figure out how much I knew. "Hi, Mom." I didn't say anything. I didn't mean for things to go like this. I still said nothing. "You haven't returned any of my messages." I blinked. "You blocked me," I said, calmly. There were no messages. There was a long pause. That was a mistake. I was overwhelmed. Everything's just been a lot. "The Maldives looked peaceful," I replied. She didn't answer. Just breathed hard into the phone. "I used the money for the kids, too. Not all of it, but some. You know how it is. We needed a break. I work hard." "You lied," I said. "You said they were sick. You said you couldn't pay the rent." Another long pause. Then a quiet, "I'm sorry." I waited a beat. Then said, "I changed the will." That got her attention. "What?" "I changed it. You're not in it anymore." "Mom, come on. Let's not do this. You're overreacting." I almost laughed. "No, Vanessa. What you did was theft. What I did is called protecting myself." She tried to backtrack. "Can we just meet? Talk in person? I'll explain everything." "I'm not interested in explanations. I just wanted you to know. I'm not confused. I'm not sick. And I'm not stupid." Then I hung up. And this time, I was the one who blocked her. After I hung up on Vanessa, the house got quiet in a different kind of way. It wasn't just the sound. It was the absence of something. For a while, I couldn't put my finger on it. Then I realized it was the absence of hope. For years, even when things felt wrong, I held on to hope. Hope that she'd turn things around. Hope that she'd remember, the way I used to hold her hand when she had asthma attacks. Hope that she'd grow into someone who appreciated what family actually meant. But now that hope was gone, and something else had settled in its place. Acceptance. She had shown me who she was, and now I was finally choosing to believe it. The next morning I took out the old letter I had written for her. The one that was supposed to be delivered with the will when I passed. I sat at the kitchen table, unfolded the pages, and started reading it aloud. Not for any reason other than to hear the words one last time. "Dear Vanessa, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. But I wanted you to know that everything I ever did was to make your life easier. The long hours I worked. The meal I skipped. The clothes I patched over and over instead of replacing. It was all so you could grow up safe and proud. I hope I made you proud too." I stopped reading. There was a line in there that said, "I hope you'll remember me kindly." I crossed that sentence out with a black pen. Then I folded the letter and placed it in the shredder. I wasn't bitter, but I wasn't going to leave behind words that no longer meant anything. That same day, Monica emailed me the digital copies of the revised documents. The new will had no mention of Vanessa. My house, my accounts, even the antique jewelry passed down from my mother. None of it was going to her now. I didn't feel guilt. I felt relief. I went to the community center later that afternoon. There was a young woman there named Shanika, who worked at the front desk. She always greeted me kindly, always remembered my name. I asked her if they had a fund or outreach program for senior women. She said they did. It was small, barely funded, mostly just gas cards and small grocery assistance. I nodded and asked for the name of the director. I took a pen and crossed out her name on the envelope. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing. She wasn't getting everything anymore. That was the first night I went to bed without turning on the porch light for her. I didn't sleep well. But for the first time, I knew I wasn't going to stay quiet. And she had no idea what that meant. I waited 5 days, 5 whole days, without a single word from Vanessa. That's my daughter's name. Vanessa. She didn't call, didn't text, didn't even try to check in. Not even a half-hearted lie to smooth things over. It was complete silence. In those 5 days, I deleted every picture of her from the hallway wall. Not in anger. I wrapped them carefully in newspaper and put them in a box. I didn't throw them away. I'm not like her. But I couldn't keep looking at those smiles that didn't mean what I thought they did. I kept thinking back to that night she called. How scared she sounded. "Mom, I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate." I could still hear her voice in my head. I kept replaying that call over and over again, like maybe I'd hear something I missed. But all I heard was fake panic and a quiet chuckle in the background. Her husband, I now realized, probably laughing at how easy it was. I knew something was wrong when she blocked me. That wasn't a slip. That wasn't stress. That was a choice. On the 6th day, I drove to the bank. I asked to speak with someone about my accounts. The young man who helped me looked nervous when I asked to freeze access on Vanessa's name. She had been listed as an emergency contact on one joint backup account I set up years ago, just in case anything happened to me. I told the bank to remove her completely. He didn't ask questions. He just nodded and tapped at the keyboard. After that, I went home and pulled out the manila folder that had my legal papers. It had dust on it. I hadn't looked at that thing in years. The will was still there, with Vanessa's name on every page. I sat at the dining table, opened a new notepad, and started making a list. Remove Vanessa from will reassign property. Deed close backup account cancel. Life insurance beneficiary. Call. Monica Reeves. Monica was my lawyer. I hadn't spoken to her in a while. Not since she helped me transfer ownership of the car when my husband passed. She had always told me, "Don't wait until things fall apart, Dolores. Get ahead of the damage." I was behind now, but not too far. That afternoon I called her office. She remembered me right away. "Dolores, it's been a while. How are you?" I didn't even pause. "I need to update everything." "Your will? All of it?" She asked if something happened. I didn't lie. I told her the truth. My daughter lied about an emergency. I gave her my savings and she used it for a vacation. Then she blocked me. There was a long pause on her end. Then Monica said, "You free Friday at 10? "I'll be there." When I hung up the phone, I felt something shift in my chest. Not relief, not strength. Just focus. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I had done enough of that. Friday morning came, and I was dressed and ready by 8:30. I wore my nice slacks and a sweater my granddaughter, Maya, had given me last Christmas. Maya was 12. Sweet girl. Smart, too. Always texting me after school, asking if I ate that day, or if I needed help with my phone. I never told her what happened with her mother. I wouldn't drag her into it. When I got to Monica's office, she welcomed me in like an old friend. I sat down at her desk, pulled out my envelope, and placed the current will in front of her. "I want this rewritten. From scratch." She looked over the old papers, nodded, then reached for a fresh stack of forms. "And who will the new beneficiary be?" I paused. "I'm not sure yet, but I know who it won't be." Monica didn't press me. She just started typing. For the next hour, we went line by line through every detail. The house, the accounts, the old insurance policy from my time working at the district office. She asked if I wanted to add a clause about restricting Vanessa from contesting the will. I told her yes. She doesn't deserve to argue for something she never respected. By the time I signed the new documents, it was past noon. My hand was sore, but my mind was clearer than it had been in a week. Monica slid the papers into a protective binder and handed it to me. "I'll file these and send certified copies."